start with typhoid. So human health and diseases. We start the chapter actually. Okay, so let's start with a quick summary. Anyone would like to volunteer today? This is the time you should start volunteering. Yes, Fatima would volunteer. Great, Fatima. Go ahead.
So we started with the new chapter, Human Health and Diseases. Firstly, we defined health. Health is the overall well-being of a human that includes physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, and social well-being. Physical well-being is the physiology of the person. And then we discussed the factors which health can be affected, which affect health. The first one is genetic disorder, which is deficiency or defects in the which can be inherited from parents. The second one is environmental factors, for example, food, water, or air being contaminated. And the third one is lifestyle, for example, obesity, which is caused by a lifestyle of a person. And
Also hygiene, you can, yes,
yeah,
right.
hygiene, and if like the person doesn't take good rest or does over exercising and the sleep schedule isn't
Or under
correct
exercising.
or under exercising, and even if the eating habits is very
Not regulated, like if you are eating without need.
yeah, if
Okay.
it's not regulated, then it can cause health disease. It can cause health to be
Can affect the health. Yes,
it can
correct.
affect sorry. Then we discussed about diseases. There are two types of diseases: infectious and non-infectious. Infectious are those diseases which can be easily transmitted from a person from an infected person to a normal person. For example, tuberculosis. No, tuberculosis and
yeah. Why did you say no?
Sorry, tuberculosis and AIDS. And non-infectious diseases are example genetic diseases, cancer, and color blindness. Then we also on the side discussed acute and chronic diseases. Acute diseases are severe but that are very short lasting. Chronic diseases aren't that severe, but then they last long. For example, diabetes.
You cannot instead of saying short lasting, because lasting word doesn't fit very good, you can say it shows the most severe symptoms it can show. It shows it very fast. So lasting means every time it's not like only the disease lasts for a very short time. Sometimes it just takes over the body and kills the person, the infected person. So short lasting, an acute diseases have more chances of killing people faster. It's not like chronic diseases don't kill people and people always are very happily living with them. They also can kill people, and mostly chronic diseases do kill people if they are not just, they cannot be maintained. For example, diabetes, it can be maintained, right? You can manage it, it's a manageable disease. But let's say HIV, which is again not acute, it's chronic. But AIDS ultimately will kill you. You cannot keep managing it for the whole of your life. So the person does die for sure from AIDS. It's lethal, it's fatal, but it's chronic. Okay. So instead of saying that it lasts shorter, you should say that chronic acute diseases show the symptoms very fast and become severe in a very short period of time. I was just the manifestations are shown very fast. I was just thinking about it and I realized that this is a better way to understand acute and chronic diseases, right?
Yeah.
Because often we think that acutes are the one we have to be afraid of and chronic are okay. Anyway, they are going to stay with us for rest of the life. It's not like that. It depends. Many chronic diseases are very, very fatal. lethal. Yes, continue.
Okay, after that we started discussing about common human diseases. The first one we took was typhoid, which is caused by Salmonella typhi, and it attacks the small intestine, which in severe cases can cause intestinal perforation. The symptoms for typhoid are
What is
extreme high.
Salmonella typhi?
It's the bacteria that causes the
Yeah,
typhoid.
so we actually started with bacterial diseases. So we are categorizing here slightly different on the basis of the organisms, the causative agents. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then, yeah, the symptoms for this is extreme high fever, stomach pain, constipation, loss of appetite, and weakness. The
Yes.
test for this is the Vidal test,
Vidal.
um, Vidal test,
It's
which
Vidal.
is the antibody antigen binding test.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you told us to read about pneumonia and whatever is that.
Pneumonia, diphtheria, dysentery, and plague. Right. So Vidal is the name of the person. He's the physician. He was a French physician who first figured out that this way can be used. This assay can be used to figure out if a person has a typhoid or not. Okay. So it's George Fernand Vidal. So it's the name. Okay. So then I ask you to go back and read about pneumonia, diphtheria, dysentery, and plague. Did you do that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So for every one of these are all bacterial diseases, because we are doing it. But I ask you to go back and figure out the causative agent. So let's start with pneumonia. So which bacteria causes pneumonia? What is the date today?
Streptococcus pneumoniae.
Yes, Streptococcus pneumoniae. What does the word Streptococcus means?
It's a type of bacteria, right?
But what information does this word gives you? Streptococcus. Is there any information about the bacteria? You have studied this in your junior classes. You know shapes of the bacteria? Bacteria are
Yeah, it's like a shape, right? What do you say? It's like small circles together, something like that.
yes. These are like bunch of grapes. Coccus.
Yeah,
No?
exactly.
Yes. So you have bacillus, which are rod shaped. For example, lactobacillus. The bacteria that helps the curdling of the milk is a rod shaped. Streptococcus are cocci shaped. Okay. So this is the information. Streptopneumonia pneumonia is caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae. This is the bacteria. So also you studied in case of typhoid, the name of the bacteria, typhi, causes the disease typhoid. Pneumonia causes the disease pneumonia. But it's not the only agent that can cause pneumonia. There's another bacteria. It's called Haemophilus influenzae. The word heme come from
Blood.
Hemoglobin.
exactly, and philic or philus comes from
Live.
heme is for blood.
Loving.
Yes, you are correct. Loving. So these bacteria just like to grow in blood. That's why they're called Haemophilus. Make sense to you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And in fact, to the level when someone studies these bacteria, but you do not get confused by the name, the species name, influenza. Now you think that influenza sounds like flu, right? And flu happens due to a virus, flu virus, right? So
Yes,
many
sir.
students just think that influenza is a virus. Haemophilus H influenza is a bacteria. Okay, it's a bacteria which just along with Streptococcus or independently, sometimes both of them, sometimes just any one of them, but they cause the same disease which is called pneumonia. Okay, even influenza causes pneumonia. Haemophilus influenza. The word Haemophilus is for blood loving, and I was saying that they love to grow in blood to a level where when we study these bacteria, so there is a blood agar medium which we use to culture these bacteria, and they do very well in that. All bacteria will not grow in blood agar media, but they will grow because they like blood. Okay. Now let's come to the disease. What happens in the disease? Basically, the mechanism of infection.
Sir, it
So
causes
Okay, we have
The
Arpit.
lung sacs are like filled with like fluid.
That's a symptom. What happens? You understand the difference between mechanism and symptom. See, symptom is many disease can share the same symptoms. For example, COVID also. You know, in COVID also, lungs were filled with fluid. There was infection in the lungs, so the SpO2 level goes down. You find it difficult to breathe, so you're put on ventilator. And so, COVID and influenza, sorry, COVID and pneumonia are they the same thing? No, right? So symptoms can be shared by many diseases, same symptoms, similar symptoms. But mechanism can also be similar. Let me tell you, there are many viruses and bacteria that just attack the body in the same manner. But then as you go deeper and deeper into their mode of action, there will be some differences. So what do you think is happening here? I think Arpit was saying something. Yes, Arpit.
I was naming the symptoms.
Okay, so you all know, let's go from symptom backwards. Okay, there are two ways to reach to the answer. When you start from the start line, or you already know what happens. So someone said that lungs are infected and gets filled by fluid, right?
Yes.
Which part of the lung? What is a lung? You know about the lung, the structure of lung already, right? Yes. Say it, Arpit. You're saying correct. Say it.
They get
Alveoli. Yes. What are alveoli?
so they're like the balloon-like structure where the
They are not at all big. They are tiny, first of all. But yes, you are right. They are bunch. They are present in a bunch. They are called air sac.
Excuse me,
A
sir.
sac. Yes, Sahel.
Sir, is the mechanism similar to bronchitis?
Bronchitis, you mean? See,
Yeah.
for that you just have to see pneumonia and bronchitis. Anything in biology which is itis, okay, means I'll not give you the answer. You will give me the answer. Itis means
Not sure, sir.
arthritis, hepatitis, renalitis, conjunctivitis, bronchitis. What do you think
disease.
itis means? Inflammation. Remember, in biology, see, this is where biology becomes easier. If you know what you are talking about, you don't have to remember. If someone asks you what is arthritis, now you know what is arthro means. Arthropoda. What does the word arthro means? In
Bones, right?
arthropoda
No.
is insects. Do they have bones?
Oh, sorry. Insects. Yeah.
The word arthro means what? In that class, arthropoda, what does the word arthro means? Class 11th, you have done it last year only. Arthro means joint and poda means appendages. So insects have joint appendages. That's why they are called arthropods. Make sense?
Yeah, sir.
Yes,
I
sir.
just told you what itis means, inflammation. So if I say the person is suffering from arthritis, what does it mean? Arthro means
Inflammation
joints.
of
The
joints.
joints flame.
Exactly.
Inflamed.
So have you not heard the word arthritis?
Yes, sir.
You must have,
Several
right?
times. Yeah.
Several times. Someone in your family, older people, or extended family must be suffering from arthritis. It's very common in old age. Like their bones, their joints swell up, their joints start paining. There is an inflammation in the joints. Okay, that's called arthritis. Hepatitis, the word hepat means hepatocytes, hepatic vein. Hepat means liver, always. Okay, hepatology is the study of the liver. So hepatitis means it's a disease. Hepatitis B, hepatitis A. What does hepatitis means?
Inflammation of the
Inflammation of,
liver.
yes, exactly. Conjunctivitis. Sometimes in eyes, in schools, if someone gets conjunctivitis, they wear black goggles and come to the school. It happens due to a virus, especially during rainy seasons. Your eyes get inflamed. The conjunctiva of the eye gets inflamed. So that's called conjunctivitis. So bronchitis. What does the word bronch here means? It comes. It's
Comes from bronchioles, right?
yes, bronchioles. So what is bronchitis now? You tell me, Sahel.
Inflammation of the bronchioles.
And in pneumonia, what happens? What gets infected? Bronchioles or alveoli? Alveoli.
Alveoli.
So do you think bronchitis is same as pneumonia?
No. I thought the mechanism would be like
Even the mechanism, see, where are bronchioles?
the present before the alveoli.
Yes, so if something is infecting the bronchioles and but not touching the alveoli, which means
It's
and
not
if
going
something
in.
is
Yeah.
yes, and if something is able to affect the alveoli but not affecting the bronchioles, which means that is the target site, it can go till there.
Got it. Different target
Correct?
sites.
Yes, it's just about target sites. For that matter, all tuberculosis, COVID, pneumonia, bronchitis, emphysema, all these diseases are of lungs. But the way they happen, they start in the target side. What kind of cells are being targeted, which are killed, which are inflamed? Where does fluid starts depositing? These things make small differences, and accordingly, our treatment also differs, right? In bronchitis or in asthma for that matter, it's bronchoconstricting disorder. So the bronchioles constrict, right? So you feel difficulty in breathing. So the symptom is same, difficulty in breathing. You cannot breathe in because your bronchioles have constricted. So we put we inhale bronchodilators. So they dilate the muscles, relax the muscles, your bronchioles open, you can again breathe in. You understood how it's treated? So the inhalers, asthmatic inhalers, they dilate the bronchioles. Make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
So, but in case of pneumonia or in case of COVID, when the alveoli gets filled with the fluid, there if you will, there also the symptom is difficulty in breathing. But can be treated by inhalers?
No, sir.
No, because here the difficulty is because of fluids filled in the lungs. It's not because of constriction, but the symptoms are similar. You understand? If you ask the patient won't be able to tell you that I am having difficulty in breathing because my bronchioles are constricted or because my alveoli are filled with air. The patient will just feel difficulty in breathing and not enough oxygen will go to the blood. Simple. Make sense to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's just the fundamentals. If you understand the biology, you don't have to remember it or mug it up. Okay, so in humans, what happens is, write down the Streptococcus pneumoniae. The target site of their infection is they infect the alveoli, which are called air sac. So they are filled with air. So these are your bronchioles. They go to the very end. Okay, become small, keep becoming smaller, diverging. They like spread through the whole lung, and at the end of them, in the terminal point, at the end, you will see these air-like structures. Air sacs are present in bunch, like a bunch of grapes. They are present like this. Okay. So the air rushes through bronchi, goes into bronchioles, and finally reaches here. This is where it is. When your lungs inflate, this is where your air is present. You understand? And at the terminal end, these small bronchioles have blood vessels, capillaries, covering it all around. So the green is blood vessels or the capillaries. You understand? And it's the bronchioles, sorry, the alveoli are just one cell layer thick. Why one cell layer thick? Because so is the capillary. So it is just one cell here and another cell here in contact. So which means things can just easily transport or get transferred from one place to another just by diffusion. You understand? That's why if it is multicellular, multi-layer thick, diffusion becomes difficult. So in our lungs, when we breathe in air, I'm just telling you this so that you know it. When you breathe in air, what is more in your, which gas has the more partial pressure? When you are breathing in air, the air that's going into your lungs, which gas or which element will predominantly be having more partial pressure? What gases are present in the atmosphere that you can breathe in?
Oxygen.
Nitrogen.
Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, helium, right? In very trace amounts. You know the composition of atmosphere, class 5th environmental science syllabus. 100%. What is the percentage of nitrogen, oxygen, CO2, helium,
Oxygen
hydrogen?
was like 20 point something percent, right? I'm not sure.
Oxygen was 21%.
21, yeah.
That's oxygen. Okay. And just 21% oxygen. Okay. So what's the rest? What's the rest? 79%.
Most of the percentage is nitrogen, right?
What is the most? Most means how most?
It will be around 70, but not completely. 1% would be left for the other gases.
Yes, it's 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. Total becomes 99.
Yeah.
0.3% is
CO2.
rest left is 0.7. In that 0.7% you have water vapors, argon, helium, hydrogen. Others are very, very trace in atmosphere. Okay. So when we breathe in, which is the gas which has the most partial pressure in our lungs? You can see it on your screen,
Nitrogen.
right? Yes, nitrogen. But do we utilize nitrogen in our metabolism
No,
as
not
a
really,
gas?
no.
No, we cannot utilize nitrogen as a gas. So we do not, this does not matter. After nitrogen, which has the second highest and the highest for us, oxygen. And CO2 is very, very less, right? In the atmosphere outside. Have you never thought how can we breathe? Why? How do we actually exchange gases? Why only oxygen comes from outside into our body and CO2 comes from inside into the outside? Why isn't opposite? Because in atmosphere, oxygen is multifold higher in partial pressure than CO2. So when we breathe in, the air which goes in our alveoli, by following simple rule of diffusion. What is the rule of diffusion? Particles from their higher concentration will move towards their lower concentration. So from alveoli, oxygen will move into blood, because in the blood, the amount of oxygen will be less. Why it will be less? Can anyone tell me quickly?
It is used.
Yes, because it's used by all our tissues before that blood comes to the lung, right? So it will be depleted in oxygen because veins carry that deoxygenated blood to the heart. You know the difference between artery and heart, I'm sure. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between an artery and a vein? Heart. What is the difference between an artery and a vein?
Yeah, artery carries oxygenated blood and vein carries deoxygenated blood.
All the time?
No, not all the time. The pulmonary artery and the vein
Yes.
interchange.
Yes. So there is one exception to arteries carrying oxygenated blood and veins carrying deoxygenated blood is the pulmonary. What does the word pulmonary means? Pulmonary sciences. Pulmonary disorders.
Heart.
Lungs. Okay.
Okay. Lungs.
Heart is cardiac arrest, cardiology. Okay. Cardiologist. When you go to gym, you do cardio exercises, cardiovascular. So that is heart, cardiac or cardio. Pulmonary is associated with lungs. So pulmonary vein is the vein which carries blood from, so the better difference to remember from now onwards, whenever someone asks you what is the difference between arteries and veins, you can say that yeah, artery mostly carries. If you use the word mostly, you are accommodating for some exceptions. That's always how biologists talk. You will never hear a biologist saying that yeah, it's surely it happens. They're like mostly it happens. That's how we are trained to talk. So that if next day after 10 years, if someone finds that this is not happening in this species, you can say, yeah, I said mostly it happens. Sometimes it cannot happen. Those are exceptions. So that's why we're intelligent. Yes. So what I was saying is, yes, if someone asks you what is the difference between artery and a vein, yes, mostly arteries carries oxygenated blood, mostly veins carry deoxygenated blood. But all the time, always, arteries carries the blood away from heart. And arteries have high pressure, always. and veins carry the blood towards the heart, and veins have low blood pressure always. You understand? So this has no exception. If you want, you can write it down, because this was asked in NEET as well as in AIMS entrance. So the which of the following will have the highest blood pressure? One of the option was yes, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, and you thought that people think that because pulmonary vein contains oxygenated blood, not the deoxygenated. Can you tell me why it is so? So pulmonary vein is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood, and pulmonary artery is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood. Can anyone think and tell me why? You have studied this in your class 11th, human physiology. Human physiology was in, yes, it was in 11th. Answers, people, quickly. I'm completing syllabus, also making you revise things. You cannot afford to forget, okay? You better start, buck up. Come on. I told you, artery always carries the blood away from heart. And if the word pulmonary artery is there, see, biology is nothing about memorizing. What does the word pulmonary means? I just told you.
Related to lungs.
Lungs. And what does the word artery means? Carrying the blood away from heart. So where is it taking the blood? From heart to?
Yeah.
If it is, yes, if it is a pulmonary artery, it's taking the blood away from heart to the lungs. Now, tell me one condition where the heart would like to send the blood to the lung. Why will you take your vehicle to the warehouse? Simple. To oxygenate. And what kind of blood needs to get oxygenated? Already oxygenated one or deoxygenated? Exactly. So do you think there is a need to remember anything now? Like memorize? Pulmonary artery is an artery. If it is an artery, one rule it will follow. Carry the blood away from heart and have high blood pressure. So if it is carrying the blood away from heart and it is a pulmonary artery, it's carrying it to the lungs. Now, for what purpose? To get oxygenated. Now, if it wants to get oxygenated, clearly it's already deoxygenated. Okay. So there is a circulatory system between heart and the body, where arteries carry oxygenated, veins bring deoxygenated. Then from heart to the lungs is the second system, where heart sends through artery deoxygenated blood and gets through vein, pulmonary vein, oxygenated blood. Will you remember that, everyone? That was important to understand alveoli. So in the alveoli, the capillaries which are covering the alveoli, they will be capillaries from pulmonary artery or pulmonary vein. They will be coming from where? And so it's like one artery comes, bifurcates into many capillaries, then again joins back to make a vein. So here what's happening? The blood which is coming to alveoli is oxygenated or deoxygenated? Deoxygenated. That's why it's coming to the alveoli to get oxygenated. So these capillaries contains deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated itself again means that the partial pressure of oxygen in that blood is low. Correct? That's why oxygen can without any problem just move from our lungs into the blood. Simple rule of concentration gradient or diffusion. Similarly, CO2. If a blood is deoxygenated, oxygen will be low, and what will be high in the blood?
Carbon
CO2.
dioxide.
Yes, and where did that carbon dioxide came from? Where does carbon dioxide comes from in the body?
From the atmosphere.
Wow. So your body gets carbon dioxide. How can carbon dioxide come from atmosphere? What are you doing with the carbon dioxide? You are generating carbon dioxide. Forgot respiration?
Okay, I mean like if you're inhaling, carbon dioxide also comes in with us, right?
Our body generates carbon dioxide. Each and every cell in our body does glycolysis. In glycolysis, breakdown of glucose happens. right? Energies. And then finally, after glycolysis, we do electron chain transport, ETC, or Krebs cycle. You have studied all of this in class 11th. If you think that you are going to crack the entrance without brushing up human physiology and plant physiology, let me tell you, you are misled. You have to go back and remember, revise these things. If you find any problem, bring those topics in the class. I'll try my level best to explain you in the given time point. We can actually ration the syllabus. Those which are more important, we can spend more time on it, and those which are less important aspects, we will spend less time on it. That's what we will do. So just knowing that what causes pneumonia may or may not come in your entrance, it's a chance thing. But anything related to knowing that how does lungs work will for sure come, okay, in some or the other way. So that's where whenever I start a topic, I also divert a little to test your foundations, and if they are weak, to help you with that. Is it clear? Is it okay with everyone
Yes, sir.
if I
Yes,
do
sir.
that? Okay, cool. Because for me, science and biology is not divided with respect to syllabus. Okay, pneumonia, so let's just know the name and go away. We are studying mechanism, so we should also know what's happening wrong. Okay, so what's the rule? The rule is our body produces CO2 through respiration, like through utilizing the breakdown of the glucose in the presence of oxygen, and that CO2 is released by every cell into the blood. So when the blood reaches the lung, that blood is that blood has high CO2 and low oxygen. So CO2 will automatically, because of concentration difference, move from blood into the alveoli, and oxygen will move from alveoli into the blood. This is the normal transaction that happens. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, if the bacteria affects the alveoli, bacterial infections, bacteria always produces toxins. If it's a bacterial infection, they will produce some toxins, right? Now our body will try to fight those toxins. So there'll be a lot of war going on in that region. And if there is a war, just remember, whenever there is war, there is bloodshed. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So here there is no, like it's in literal terms, it's not bloodshed here, but fluid shed. So there'll be fluid which will get filled in the lungs, in the alveoli. Now the only place in the lungs where fluid can get deposited in these, like they can also get deposited in the interstitial tissues, but if they get deposited in the alveoli, the transfer of these gases, which I just explained you, becomes very difficult. So your body over time gets deficient of oxygen, and CO2 keeps accumulating. That was the symptom. You must have heard this one thing during COVID, that his SpO2 level went to 80%, 70%, 90%, etc. Right? What was that SpO2? SpO2 is
It's like a
saturation.
oxygen level.
Yes,
Yes.
SpO2. O2 is oxygen. O2 is the oxygen gas. Sp is saturation pressure of O2. So normally our body is 100% saturated with oxygen if we are healthy people. If you are, so if I do the test of any one of you, you play, you are active, you go to school, you come back, you do all sorts of things, you have no lung disease. So saturation pressure means whatever is the carrying capacity of our blood to carry oxygen, that's full, 100%. Our blood is carrying oxygen with all its strength. That's 100% SpO2. That does not mean that in our blood 100% oxygen is there and 0% CO2 is there. It does not mean that. It says that whatever maximum amount of oxygen our blood could carry, it is carrying that. Even if it will go down in a healthy person, it will be 99 or 98% at any given time, which is normal. So 98 to 100% is the normal range in everyone's body. People with pneumonia, people with COVID, people with lung diseases, tuberculosis, lung cancer, their SpO2 levels always go down, because now first the transfer is affected. Second, if the transfer is not happening properly because of lung infections, then the blood will have less oxygen than it can carry. So the saturation pressure of oxygen will go down to 90, 80, 70, whatever. Make sense to you, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, cool. So now if someone asks you what is this SpO2, why SpO2 decreases in COVID, because COVID virus also affects the lungs, okay, upper respiratory tract, the respiratory tract. lungs and the bronchi and all these. Okay, so write down the bacteria infects the, what did I do? Okay, the bacteria infects the alveoli, and as a result of the infection, the alveoli gets filled with fluid. Now all these fluid is the fluid secreted by the cells only, okay, the infected cells. Because cell starts dying, their cytoplasm starts oozing out, starts getting filling in. Okay, that's what happening. You know swelling, right? What happens in swelling? Fluid gets filled, right, in that region. That's what swelling
Yes.
is. So how do we treat swelling? Anyone has, if you have a throat
Ice
swelling,
packs.
sorry,
Ice packs.
ice packs might work. I'm not very sure what mechanism helps it, but I think ice packs and heat or cold treatment majorly helps muscle swellings. But if I'm asking about the epithelium, like if your throat gets swelled from inside, you cannot put an ice pack there, right? What can you do? You all have done it at one point or the other. Doctors tells that do gargles with salt water. Yeah, have you done it? Gargles with salt water. Why
Yes, sir.
gargles and why with salt water? What is the logic? You are studying, you are biology students, going to be doctors, biologists, researchers, or even if not anything, but you studied biology, you know. Next time you will gargle, you will know why I'm gargling. Why gargling and why hot water and why salty hot water, warm water? Anyone knows?
Salt has healing properties.
Then why don't we apply salt on wound? That is torture. That's not healing. Since when salt had healing? What property salt have? Salt is NaCl. Sodium and chloride. How can it heal you? No, if that is your thought process, you have to defend it, right, Fatima? I think it's absurd. It's good that you thought. I could not have thought in that direction. That's where I say that you people are already way smarter than me when I was
Ma'am,
your age.
so we
Yeah.
could break it down into two. So gargle is hot water with salt. Hot water
Okay.
because, as you said, for it helps in swelling.
But how? Like, so, oh, you mean to say that that hot pack here
Yeah,
also we are
if you
providing the
relate like that.
temperature. Okay, good, very good, brilliant.
And salt, maybe because the bacteria which is there in the throat is neutralized by that salt property or something.
Very good, very good. So salty water makes it difficult for the bacteria it's like, why can't bacteria survive in salt water again?
It's
You
like
touch the very,
bacteria does not survive in sea, right?
yes,
Which is
the normal
salty.
bacteria cannot survive in sea,
Yeah.
but there are halophile bacteria that can survive in sea. Okay, they are called halophiles because they like halophilic. Halo
Yeah,
means,
but the salt,
yeah.
I mean, the
This is-
bacteria in our throat is not hemophilic, probably.
Good, very, very good, brilliant. So bacteria gets killed. You get rid of bacterial infection the more you gargle. And if you put some betadine in it, or if you put some antibacterial thing in it, like some solution,
Healthy.
that also helps faster. So that thing which you put in your hot water is healing, has healing properties. Do you understand, Fatima? Often they put you something to put in the water and then gargle, right? That has
Yeah.
healing properties, or killing properties, I should say. They kill the bacteria. Also your salt is doing that. Fair enough, bacteria got killed, but how is it's helping with the swelling? It instantly also helps with the swelling. You know that? It has something to do with chemistry. Go back and read about solute and solution, solute, solvent, solution, and diffusion. Okay, that's your homework for today. The biology homework for today is to go back and revise chemistry, chapter solutions. Where was it? Class 11th, right? Solutions?
Well,
Solution this year, sir.
This year, okay, good. So I'm helping who teaches chemistry? I think, who's teaching you chemistry from the team? Anyone who, like
Salim.
those
Salim
who
sir
are
for me.
okay, those who are taking chemistry here at Learnivio. Salim sir is teaching chemistry. So I'm giving you a chemistry homework. Go back and revise solutions, and then come back and tell me, how do you think a salty water is helping to get rid of or to heal swelling in your throat? Okay, everyone, will you do that? Let's connect biology and chemistry together. You can ask the same question in your chemistry class for help. Like I will not consider that cheating, but you have to figure out. That's what I'm saying. So coming back, so the alveoli gets filled with fluid, and because of which, write down, you have breathing difficulties. Now you understand what do I mean by this breathing difficulty. Breathing difficulty. So this is pneumonia basically. Now what are the symptoms? You understand the mechanism. Now let's come to the symptoms. Much before breathing difficulty starts, your body detects infection. So one symptom which is common in all infections in our body is what? If it is a systemic infection, if it is not a local infection, there are two types of infection. One infection that goes into a vital organ, it becomes systemic, and other is like a fungal infection in your nails or on the skin somewhere, a local infection. Acne and pimples are also infections. Basically, they are infections of your sweat pores. So people who have oily skin, whose sweat pores are more active, sebaceous and sweat and sebaceous glands are very active. So their pores open. Pores should always be open so that sweat and oil can come out very easily. Okay. In case if dirt goes and those pores are closed, so now bacteria can just develop there, and that causes your acne, pimples, all these. So it's also an infection, but that's a local infection of your skin. But anything which is inside to an organ or to the whole body generates a response in our body called fever. Fever is symptom in all systemic infections. You should know that. Again, with the same thing, why is body getting warm if there is infection?
To kill the bacteria inside or the whatever
To kill the
pathogen.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. To kill the pathogen. Just like we boil water, our brain starts boiling our, not boiling, but starts warming our blood, so that even if we cannot kill them, we can make them slow or inactive. Correct? Because these pathogens have evolved to do the job best at 37 degrees Celsius, which is our body temperature. That's why they infected us in the first place. That's how they could infect us. But if we raise the body temperature, their activity will drop down. So the infection will become slow and our body will get more time to heal. But thus another, fever is a double-edged sword. The problem is you have to control it. Our brain cannot control it. Till the infection is there, the fever will keep rising. That can also start having other effects. And all physics and chemistry is applied. You know what happens when we heat a liquid? The flow of liquid increases, right? Anything expands when it's heated, right? It flows faster in terms of liquid. So our blood flow increases, blood pressure increases, chances of hemorrhage also increases when you have high fever. So it should be brought down. So that's where we take antipyretics like paracetamol. So fever is one. Then in pneumonia, you have cough because it's a respiratory issue. So you will cough a lot. If your tract and your lungs are infected, you will cough a lot. That's your response. That's your body's response to throw out whatever is irritating you. But now you cannot just cough and throw out all the bacteria, but you will keep coughing. You will have headache. You can also have body ache and chills because of fevers. Chills is where you feel cold. You start shivering due to cold. Okay. And in severe cases, which I'm writing with the red one, so red symptoms are severe symptoms. If you cannot treat pneumonia in time, the lips and the nails, nails become grayish blue. Okay. or bluish gray in color. Why do you think this happens? Anyone? Why do lips start becoming grayish blue? Lips, nails.
Lack of oxygenated blood supply.
Very good. Perfect. So now you are thinking already like a biologist. Very good. Great. So now let's go to symptoms. Is clear? All the symptoms are associated. If you understand the disease, you will just say you can predict the symptoms. Now, mode of infection. This is how you have to do all the diseases. I'm just doing this one for you. Mode of infections. What do you think? How can pneumonia spread from one person to another? Again, logic. It's a respiratory disease. Any respiratory disease is more problematic than other kind of even infectious diseases. AIDS is also an infectious disease, but it's not that big a problem. You can actually contain AIDS from spreading. You can prevent AIDS from spreading very easily. Then you can prevent COVID from spreading, right? Why did COVID become a pandemic? What was so special about COVID? And if you look at the biggest pandemics that have ever happened in the world before, you will see one trend. Most of them, almost all of them, I'm using the word almost, were related to respiratory diseases. They were respiratory infections or those which could transmit through droplets, nasal droplets. Okay. If something is just spreading through fluid, let's say body blood, like HIV/AIDS or semen or any other body fluid, you can control it, right? But you cannot prevent people from breathing. They will breathe, they will sneeze, they will cough. And when they will do it, there'll be droplets coming out of their nose and mouth, respiratory droplets that will carry bacteria or virus, which is causing the disease, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
That's why pandemic, most of the respiratory disorders are pandemic. Now, mode of infection is simple. Write down. Inhaling the droplets from infected person, sharing glasses and utensils, inhaling the droplets, sharing glasses, utensils, touching the surfaces that may be contaminated. Okay, so these are all the symptoms. The same symptoms you will find for, sorry, this is the mode of infection. The same mode of infection will be for COVID as well, because that's also a respiratory disease. So now is it clear? You don't have to memorize for all different diseases. If you know it's caused by bacteria, if you know it attacks the respiratory system, you know that it can get affected, it can get transmitted through these and these modes. Make sense, everyone? Helpful? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I gave you the homework for the others. Let's go to dysentery first. What causes dysentery? What is dysentery? What is dysentery?
So all I know is it's caused by Entamoeba histolica. I kind of read
That's
through it and then I don't really understand that.
So
but
it's a
entamoeba. Yeah. Yes. Tell me.
it's a bacterial infection caused due to poor hygiene and caused by different bacteria, sometimes Salmonella, E. coli, or Shigella.
Yes. So when you and what Matthew said, that's a different disease. Amoebic dysentery happens due to amoeba. Amoeba is not a bacteria. Amoeba is a,
Yeah, but it comes under dysentery, right?
yes, it comes under dysentery, but it's called amoebic dysentery. That also, I think, that also you will study. That's also in your syllabus. Interestingly, dysentery
Oh,
and
wow,
amoebic
all right.
dysentery are different. Okay, so dysentery is caused by bacteria. The major one. It can be a cocktail of bacteria. It can be many different bacteria. E. coli can also cause dysentery, as Sahel said. The major one is Shigella. Okay, so dysentery, the most common dysentery is caused by Shigella, Salmonella, Shigella, and E. coli. E. coli full form is, anyone knows the full form of E. coli?
Escherichia coli.
Escherichia coli. Just know it, E. coli, right? I'm very
Yeah.
happy that they said it, E. coli. Okay, so dysentery, and what happens in dysentery quickly? Because you have done this, I will not do this. I'm just asking you, just to cross check if you have done it correctly. What happens in dysentery? What gets affected by this bacteria? Let's say Shigella. I take an example. Sahel, you said that Shigella or E. coli or Salmonella. So where does they?
intestinal, sir.
What is the
Intestine.
site of attack? Intestines.
Intestine.
Perfect. So what happens? What do you think is happening? The lining
So
of
the
intestine.
bacteria,
Mhm.
they'll be getting inflamed,
And because of
and
which?
they'll be excruciating pain in the body, in the abdomen region.
Yes, right. And what will your body do to such infections? What response will your body show
The
logically?
body would actually, the body would probably, the first thing would be raising temperature, high fever.
There'll be fever, yes, because it's a
Yeah.
systemic.
Yeah, then there would be cramps as well.
Yes, and
Yeah, then the response.
but what is
would-
dysentery? What happens in dysentery? Cramps and fever happens in all, but what is one thing that happens in dysentery and not in pneumonia, let's say?
Constipation
Diarrhea.
or diarrhea? Okay, that
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Dysentery is diarrhea. You just throw everything out because that's what the response of your body will be like. So if there's an infection in the small intestine, body will say, okay, just empty the small intestine. So diarrhea will happen. In amoebic dysentery, which is dysentery is just diarrhea only, but a very severe form of it, sometimes bloody diarrhea with blood also, because your lining is infected. Diarrhea is a milder kind of the same thing, where you ate something which your body didn't like, or your intestines found, oh, it can be something problematic or allergic response. So there is allergic response shown by your gut as well. Guts are also allergic to certain things. So if something goes in your nose, like a pollen grain, we will study about allergy also in this chapter. So difference between allergy and disease also we will study. But when something goes in your nose which you are allergic to, what do? Sneeze. You start sneezing and you keep sneezing, right?
Yes, sir.
So that's why allergies are called hyper exaggerated response. So you are exaggerating the response. You did not need to sneeze for continuous 15 minutes. Just sneeze once or twice and it's done. That's the normal process. But when your body does not know the difference, it keeps sneezing. That's allergy. If your gut is allergic to something, you will just eat something. Your gut will not like it. So if it does not like it, just don't absorb it, throw it. But it will keep throwing. It will go under a diarrhea state. So diarrhea will happen, lose motions. And you will keep throwing everything from the body multiple times in a day. That's response. In dysentery, the intestinal lining is not just thinking that something is harmful, actually something is affecting it and infecting it. Lining is getting degraded or something, and it's a very severe form. Okay. Okay, so and also quickly tell me, what do you think is the mode of spread then? Can it spread through nasal droplets? Contact points like doorknobs, utensils, can it spread through that? Dysentery? No, right?
Yeah,
Because
no.
what's the bacteria is being
But
expelled
how?
through contaminated food and water. Simple. Because the only thing bacteria is present in is your fecal matter. If that fecal matter is not properly discarded, and if the food or the water is contaminated, for example, if people are defecating in the open, someone has dysentery, the person defecated in the open, flies went on that fecal matter, touched the fecal matter, brought that to your food or water, sat there, you had that food or water. That's how dysentery is spread. And in rural areas, they spread very fast because people do not have at times proper sanitization and toilets, right? So they defecate in the open. So that how it can, or through contaminated water. You defecated around a water source, that water source is used by people, so that way also. Okay, but it cannot spread through nasal drops or touching, etc. Make sense, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Good. You are making sense in biology, that's fine. Diphtheria, what is diphtheria? Quickly, the same things. Someone should tell all these things now about diphtheria.
Just
What
thing
causes
with in the throat, right? Caused by bacterium rhine diphtheria or something.
So what is diphtheria, first of all?
It's infection in the throat.
Throat and nose, the upper respiratory tract. It does not go to the lungs. Okay.
Okay.
So can you see that now there is this, whatever is doing this is actually very diphtheria is done by is caused by a virus, sorry, bacteria, and this bacteria is affecting your upper respiratory tract only, nose and the throat. Okay, and what happens?
So it can be spread through the air.
Yeah, now you tell me. Of course it can, because it's an upper respiratory tract disorder. You will sneeze, cough, it can just spread through droplets, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and what causes? By saliva also it can spread, because in the upper respiratory tract, of course. So it's airborne, and it can spread through saliva, like sharing drinks. If someone has diphtheria, you share the drinks, or you eat the food, share the food through that also. Cough, sneeze, etc. And what causes diphtheria? Anyone knows?
What is it? Corynebacterium diphtheria.
Corynebacterium diphtheria.
Coryne, yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, it's Corynebacterium diphtheria. Perfect. The name diphtheria comes from there only. Pneumonia you have done, diphtheria you have done. Tell me about plague, anyone, quickly. Because NCERT has just written these words, so they can be asked. NCERT does not talks about these diseases at all. It just says that some of the bacterial diseases are. So you have to study it. Plague, what is plague?
It's like normally when an insect bites you.
Insect.
No, yeah, there's some in some cases it's insects. I believe.
Plague only happens in mammals, let me tell you.
Mammal. Okay, fine. I thought you were talking
Insects.
about the bubonic plague and all that.
Yeah, bubonic plague only also happens only in mammals. Rats
Oh.
are mammals.
Yeah, I said when the insect bites you, so they could be carriers,
Insect
right?
bites you. Okay, yes,
Yeah.
right. They can be
Yeah.
carriers, of course. But what is causing? So I thought you were saying that insect bites and you get plague.
Oh no. Not that. It's something like how is it? I
So
kind of forgot.
something gets, I understood, you're right. Something gets transmitted from one mammal to another, like say from rats to human. And that's something we know this bacteria, because we are studying it in bacterial diseases. So I'm just asking, what is that bacteria? Which bacteria causes plague? If it get transmitted by rat bite, and or so this plague, which is very prevalent, spread through rats, and rats can come and eat your grains, eat the bread or something in the home, leave the bacteria there. You then eat that bread or that grain and you get plague. If a mosquito goes and bites that rat and also comes and bites you, you can get plague. But what is getting transferred is I'm asking. What is the causative agent of plague, like Shigella, Corynebacterium, diphtheria? This is called bacteria called Yersinia pestis. Why pestis? Yersinia, Yersinia. Yersinia pestis causes plague. Corynebacterium diphtheria causes diphtheria. Streptococcus pneumonia or Haemophilus influenzae causes pneumonia. Everything is clear? Bacterial disease is clear to you, everyone?
Yes, sir.
And now in plague, because anyone tell me what are the symptoms quickly of plagues and how it spreads? So you said bubonic plague. It is one type of plague, right? Matthew, do you know about the other types? Any idea about other types?
Not really, sir. I research more about the bubonic plague, really, because it
Okay,
is a
so
big.
one is
Pandemic.
bubonic plague, which is yes, which is the most prevalent, most studied also. Another is pneumonic plague, just like pneumonia, pneumonic plague, bubonic plague, and a septicemic plague. So just do a little bit on plague, just figure out what are the mode of infection for plague. Okay, I think you have not dived deep in for plague, so please do that. I'm giving you that homework, and also read solution chapter. That's your another homework. Now let me quickly, oh sorry, I always forget that. Okay, now let me quickly go to some viral diseases. Bacterial we have covered, things which are in your syllabus, let's say viral diseases. And I will start with something which is not in your NCERT, but is the hot topic. So we are seeing questions in all sorts of entrance exams coming from this one viral disease, which is called as, can anyone guess?
Coronavirus.
Exactly. It's called as COVID-19. So I thought to include this in your syllabus. Whatever entrance you will be giving, just expect that they can ask something about this virus. So what is COVID-19? What is COVID-19 means, first of all, quickly. So co comes from corona, V comes from virus, I comes from induced,
Disease.
which means, and D comes for disease. And 19 is because first reported in December 2019. This virus, it's a novel virus, a new virus that we have not encountered before. Coronavirus is a class of viruses. We know about coronaviruses a lot. We have been studying, not a lot, I should not say that because I'm not an expert on that, but people are studying, scientists are studying coronavirus from last 40, 50, 60 years. We know about their existence. They are called coronavirus because these viruses have a peculiar feature. Their surface looks like something like this. Imagine a ball with pinheads all around it in 3D. And this is how we used to draw sun, right? As when we were kids, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You know what the word corona means? You will be very funny. It's the word corona means the surface of the sun. We use the same word for the surface of the sun.
Corona
It's called the
radiata.
corona. Yes, and again, the corona radiata comes from there. Also, the word corona means that the surface is like radiating outside, like the surface of the sun. Corona radiata is the outermost layer of
The ovum.
second, yes, ovum or secondary oocyte. Yes, correct. So the corona words comes from sun, looks like a sun surface, and inside there is a RNA genome sitting. So this is coronavirus in general. Now there are many different types of coronavirus. This is not the first coronavirus that we are encountering. You should know that before that there was a SARS that happened. Severe acute respiratory syndrome around 2003, if I'm not wrong. It was spread in Asia, many countries of Asia. So, SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, the virus there was also a coronavirus. Okay. So it was known as SARS-CoV-1 when it happened before.
COVID-19 is called SARS-CoV-2.
Yes, and COVID-19 is called SARS-CoV-2. It belongs to the same class. It's a cousin. And there was also one thing that happens in Middle East. It's called MERS.
Yeah,
This
Middle
virus,
Eastern Respiratory Syndrome.
Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, MERS. And here the virus was also from the same family. And in SARS-CoV-1, we thought that either it came from bats or something like that. SARS-CoV-2 is also predicted to be coming from bats and pangolins. In MERS, the virus, so all these are zoonotic disorders, where an animal carrying a virus, the virus started recognizing and affecting a human cell. So viruses are very specific sometimes. If they affect one animal, they will not affect the other. So there are plant viruses which specifically will affect the plant only, like tobacco mosaic virus, TMV, and other viruses. Some viruses are called bacteriophages. They only affect bacteria. They kill the bacteria. but they will not kill us or our cells. But somehow they make a jump, they change the host, and they start causing disease in us. Okay, so MERS started from camels, because camels are the major livestock that people used to have in the Middle East. So MERS also came. So SARS, MERS, and COVID-19. So nothing new about coronavirus, but this is a novel one. So COVID-19 stands for coronavirus induced disease, which was first reported in December 2019. Okay, everyone. Now we know it is a coronavirus. You now know what is corona. And viruses can be of two types. One can be RNA virus and the other can be DNA virus. Okay, so in today's in this chapter, I'm also going to teach you AIDS in detail. AIDS as a disease. When we will do immunity or immune system, we will study AIDS. Now AIDS also happened because of a virus. Can you tell me what is the name of that virus?
HIV.
What is the full form of the
Human
virus?
immunodeficiency virus.
Human immunodeficiency virus. Okay, so that is a RNA virus, just like corona. Corona is also a RNA virus. RNA virus means their genome. So viruses are very simple. They come at the borderline of living and dead. When they are outside the host body, they just act like a particle of sand. They are not active. They cannot multiply. They cannot do anything. Only when they enter a host cell, they start recognizing the cell. They start hijacking the machinery of the host cell, and start multiplying, making their copies. And that's where the infection starts. They start killing the host cell by multiplying and then breaking open the cell and coming out of it. So that's where viruses start affecting. Now, RNA viruses have RNA as the genome. Okay, so this outermost coat is a protein coat. So viruses are simple. They have a protein coat. They're like Amazon parcels. Just a protective layer. Inside is the material. Nothing in between. Not like our cells with cytoplasm, proteins, cell organelles, lipids, etc., etc. Nothing. Just a protein coat, and inside a naked genetic material. Why do we call it naked genetic material? Because it is not bound by any membrane, no protein binding, nothing. It's just a genetic material present, coated by a protein for protection. Now this genetic material can be a RNA or can be a DNA. Just remember for now that if this is RNA, we call those viruses as retroviruses. Why we call them retroviruses? Because I told you while teaching.
Reverse transcription.
Sorry?
They do reverse transcription.
Perfect. And I told you that the theory, a hypothesis of RNA evolved, right? It said that RNA evolved as a genetic material first, before DNA, right? So what does the word retro means? Why they are called retroviruses? Retro songs, retro movies, retro fashion. What does the word retro means? Old, right? Retro songs are the songs of the 60s and the 70s and the 80s for us, correct?
Yeah.
So retroviruses are those which evolved the first ones, ancestors of the DNA viruses, kind of. So they still have RNA as their genetic material, so they are called retroviruses. Okay. Now they are slightly tricky to handle. We will discuss why they are tricky to handle when we will come to AIDS. But just know that it is a RNA virus, so corona has a RNA as the genetic material. And what is the mechanism? What happens? Now it affects your lungs, the tissues of the lungs, because of which the lungs get fluid filled, and it does not have only one target site like only bronchi or the alveoli. So basically it works through a receptor. You don't have to remember any of it. It's called ACE1. It's a receptor on our cells. So in our respiratory system, this receptor, this virus can recognize and then hijack the cell by making an entry into the cell, multiply, kill the cells, do the same thing over and over again. It takes over the lung if not treated properly, and then fluid gets filled, Again, you cannot breathe, SpO2 level fall down, and because the SpO2 levels fall down, other kind of symptoms start coming up. The person can go into a coma-like state where the brain starts dying, brain is not responding, etc., etc. We still don't know what are the long effects of the COVID, because COVID has not been around for very long. Only with time, in coming 5, 6, 7 years, we will get to know even people who have recovered from COVID, have they really recovered from COVID forever or not? Because many viral infections, when we recover from them, they leave a mark, they leave something, some kind of inability. We always have some symptoms. So people who have got COVID and recovered from COVID, what kind of long symptoms they may or may not have, we are not clear about it. Okay. But what we know about COVID is that it's a viral disease. It's caused by a coronavirus, which is known as SARS-CoV-2. This is the full name. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2. One was the cousin, different one. And what another things we know is the symptoms. What are the symptoms? In the mechanisms, we only know with surety only this much, that it affects the cells of the lungs, our respiratory tract, by recognizing this ACE1 receptor. That's all you have to know. And it causes lung infection and all the symptoms associated with lung infection. So what are the symptoms? Fever, difficulty in breathing,
Cold.
yes, cold, irritation in throat, cough. But one thing which was very, very prevalent in COVID was loss of taste and smell, correct?
Yeah.
This does not happen in normal respiratory disorders. Like in pneumonia, you don't lose the smell or taste, right? But in COVID, many people did. You know why? But they also regained it, correct?
Mhm.
When they were okay, they again regained. Now the
Does it
interesting,
affect like the sensory?
perfect, correct. So we have epithelium. We have sensory epithelium in our nose, which is called olfactory epithelium. It is a layer of cells of sensory neurons. Similarly, we have a like a layer of sensory neurons, taste receptor neurons in our tongue. Okay, so these two gets killed by the virus. The virus kills these layers, these neurons. Okay, now when the infection is overcome, these neurons, the axons, the sensory neurons can again come up. Okay, they can again regenerate. So this epithelial, olfactory epithelium and gustatory epithelium is not the part of the central nervous system. It is a part of the sensory or the peripheral nervous system. So they can regenerate and just outside the brain. You must have heard, no, that neurons do not regenerate, right? Neurons are terminally differentiated cells. They do not regenerate. Not studied? If you don't know this, good, because they can regenerate. Now this knowledge is being challenged and we have figured out some neurons, yes, of course, they will never regenerate, but some neurons do regenerate, both in the brain and outside the brain. So the proof is your epithelium, olfactory epithelium. You can lose sense of smell and then again get it back. In COVID, it happened. So that are the symptoms. Spread, you all know. We were just, everyone was shouting in our ears, how do COVID spread and how can we prevent it? So COVID spread through nasal drop, respiratory drops, coming in contact with the surface. So these viruses are very, very sneaky. And because they affect the respiratory tract, infection becomes even more easier. Okay. And how can we prevent? Keep sanitizing the hand and use masks. That's all. So just a overview of the same thing that you must have heard a lot in last 2 years. But remember, they can ask you for COVID. Okay. Any other viral disease that you would like to suggest? We can start with. Apart, before COVID, we all used to get cold, right? Every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah,
We
rhinitis.
call it common cold. Common cold is caused by rhinovirus, and it is one group of the viruses which causes most of the human infections. Most common viral infections are caused by rhinoviruses. So write down. Most common human viral infections are caused by rhinoviruses, and the example is common cold. Common cold is the most common viral infection in humans. Every human gets common cold, and it's so common that we get it multiple times, right? Sometimes every season
Yes.
we get common cold, correct? Now I have a question. If we get some disease, you must have heard that our immune system then understands the disease, and next time, like in case of COVID, we generate immunity against COVID, correct? That's the whole point of taking vaccines. We get immune, yes or no? So the
Yes.
next time when it will happen, our body will fight it, or we will not feel the symptoms. Why can't our body ever get immune to rhinovirus, the common cold? We get common cold every season, right? Sometimes we just do not, like, if you don't take proper care, we just get common cold like this, so easy. That's why it's called common cold. It's not like chicken pox or smallpox. Smallpox is very lethal, but chickenpox, if you get chickenpox once, it's again a viral disease. Then you say that, okay, now you are shielded, right? Because you have antibodies in your body. What happens in case of common cold that we are not able to get full protection against it? Ever. Think about it, okay? And we can discuss tomorrow. I'm giving you some food for thought. That's all. Now, what do they infect? Again, common cold only is restricted to our upper respiratory tract. Common cold does not reaches your lungs. It affects your nose, the nasal cavity, and the throat. Right down. Nose, nasal cavity, and throat. But it does not affect your lungs. That's the difference. And again, it all depends on how the virus interacts with our system, which kind of cells it recognizes and infects. So what happens if it is just the upper respiratory tract? What will be the symptoms? Quickly, you people keep writing. I'm discussing, I'm telling you what will be the symptoms.
A runny nose, cough.
Runny nose, simple. And congestion, nasal congestions. You need something to open one nose. For me, it happens whenever I get a cold. My one nose is like Sahara Desert, dry, and the other nose is like a glacier.
I can relate, sir.
Yeah, right. And then after some time, the roles will be switched. For me,
Yeah.
it's never like both the noses are dry or both the nostrils are running. I don't know what kind of cold I do get, but you can also relate, Fatima.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true, right? So sometimes during the cold I breathe with the left nostril, and then I realize, oh, I'm just breathing with the right one now. The left one is blocked.
I don't know
Anyways,
what, but then
yes, yes. But it's good that we can also breathe through the mouth. Otherwise, cold would have taken lives. But it's fine. It's how the system has evolved. Good. Anyways, so yes, sore throat, nasal discharge, running nose, and cough, fatigue also sometimes. And this common cold usually every time. Okay, when common cold happen, we know that it's a viral disease. Sometimes we get fever also. So doctors call it viral fever, right? Viral fever and cold. If it is accompanied by a fever, you call it viral fever and viral cold, correct? Then you go to a doctor. How many of you can tell me, if you have went to a doctor, what do the doctor give you? It has a fundamental that we are going to discuss. What do you get in common cold as medicines?
Cetirizine.
Cetirizine. Cetirizine is given in mostly in allergic responses. If you have cold because of some allergy into your respiratory tract, then you will take cetirizine. Taking cetirizine in common cold is not very, it should not be encouraged, I will say, because cetirizine acts, it's an antihistamine. It will block certain histamine secretion and your nose will just go dry. But the problem of taking cetirizine during cold or common cold is that you also get some nasal discharge containing sputum, right? You know, sputum, mucus discharge is also there.
Yes, sir.
All that mucus dries and sticks wherever it is. Then it becomes a bigger problem. You might get a headache due to that only. So think of something else. What do doctor give you? They don't give you cetirizine, I'm sure. They give you antibiotics. If you have taken proper care, they give you a paracetamol if you have fever, and with that paracetamol, a pansy or a Panadol or something which is just prevents um, secretion of lots of acid, because when these drugs go in our stomach starts producing more and more acids. So just to prevent you from getting gastritis is the word gastro and itis. Quickly tell me, I'm already making you 5% doctors. Gastritis is gastro plus
Inflammation,
itis.
inflammation due to gases.
The
In
word gastro means stomach.
okay, gases. Sorry,
Gastric juices, class 11th, human physiology, digestive system. Gastric juices, gastrointestinal tract,
So
right?
inflammation in the stomach.
Yes, it happens because of lot of acid secretion sometimes. So these Panadol, Pansy, Pandy taken along with paracetamol helps you to keep the HCl level in your stomach controlled. But the major thing which you take is antibiotics. Now, what do antibiotics work on? Do they work on virus?
No.
No, they kill bacteria. But have you ever thought that why is a doctor giving me something which kills bacteria when I'm infected by a virus? Can anyone answer that? One thing that people don't understand, medicine, the field of medicine say, hey, doctors just write medicines because they have to make money. Unfortunately, that may be the case in case of doctors who are not morally
In case of
acting.
quack.
Yeah, sometimes. But mostly all doctors will write you antibiotics when you are on a viral fever. So what's happening here? Should we trust them? Should we take those antibiotics, or should we just stop, take one and stop?
We should take them.
Because doctors are giving it, right? We don't understand
Not
what's
just
happening, so you better take it.
not just that, but
Yeah.
actually, even if we don't know what's actually happening, we know that it's gonna cure us.
But how can an antibiotic cure a viral disease? That's what I'm asking you. It does not fit according to the rule of biology. You study biology, you're a biologist, you know that we cannot kill a virus, rhinovirus, with an
It
antibiotic.
reduces
How
the
is it
symptoms, though. It
symptom
suppresses
of
it.
how? Symptom can only be suppressed by two ways, I understand. As far as I understand. You tell me if you understand any other way. One is you
Antibiotics
just,
will release antibodies, right?
yes, but they will not act on virus. They will not act on any toxin produced by virus, let's say. They
But
may
it
act
might
on,
help
yeah.
the already inbuilt cells which are ready to fight the virus in the body, which are inbuilt. It might help them.
How? How can an antibody help a cell to fight virus? Antibody can help a cell to fight bacteria. That I can understand. But how a virus? If it was, if something can act against virus, it's called antiviral, not antibacterial. Antifungal. It's the same thing like you have a fungal infection and you go to doctor and the doctor gives you antiviral now. And then you are saying that maybe somehow the antiviral is helping our body to kill these fungal cells. So, but you're thinking that I appreciate, but think about it, okay? And I'm giving you a homework. You have to study malaria and dengue. just the basics. Try to brush up malaria and dengue, and if you also get to figure out about chikungunya as well. So these are the three diseases, viral diseases: malaria, dengue, and chikungunya. We'll do one which is malaria and dengue. Also, I'll tell you about dengue also, because that sometimes is asked, though it's not in your NCERT. But malaria and dengue we'll do in the next class in detail. And you have to give me the answer. Why doctors? You can also go to someone who's a doctor and ask. That's not cheating, okay? Just figure out why doctors give antibiotics when you are having a viral infection in your body. Cool, everyone? These are something that happen around us all the time. We don't understand it when we read NCERT. So in my classes, you will not just be prepared for exams, you will also understand biology. It's interesting. Don't you find biology interesting subject when I talk about it?
Very interesting, sir.
Right. So go and find out why are you. Yes, Fatima.
Evolution was a little boring.
Evolution was a little boring. Okay. I get that. Genetics, how was genetics?
That was my favorite part.
You know, and genetics only have come out. Genetics is a product of evolution. Evolution happened, that's why we are so genetically diverse. So at least if you like genetics, then you like evolution, even if you don't know it.
No, I like genetics. I love, but then I
So
don't
if
like.
there was no evolution, there would not have been any genetics. Or you can also say otherwise, if genetics would not have played its role, then genetic diversity would not have been created and there would not have been evolution. It goes both ways. Yes.
So
Okay. So
there was too
yeah,
much of by-hearting in evolution.
what you?
I felt like there was too much of by-hearting in evolution. For example, like in like when they evolve.
Too much of, sorry, I could not understand the word. Too much of
by-hearting.
by hearting. Yes, you have to remember a lot. Yes, yeah, that's there. You know that I tried to minimize as much as I could, but I also have limitations. I'm not the best teacher in the world for sure,
Yes, sir,
but
it's not like that.
I'll,
But then,
I'll
like
keep trying.
the chapter itself is like that.
Yeah, some things have to be just remembered. You know, that's true for everything, not just science. You know, literature or engineering or physics or chemistry. There has to be some memorization, which I try to reduce as much as I can. But okay, but I think if you do not like evolution, I can accept that it's for the memorizing part of it. But do you understand the concept? Do you like the concept that how we figured out as humans, and only we figured out, you know, dogs, cats, horses don't know about their evolution. Only humans know about their as well as every other organism's evolution. And we figured it out systematically by experiments, proving one thing at a point, joining link by link.